you understand how to deliver frictionless customer experiences across platforms? Do you have a plan for how to integrate and analyze global data? From something as simple as helping you figure out dinner on the run, or realizing the potential of future-forward visions like connected cars. Cloud is changing the way we live, work, and play. These transformative technologies are touching every aspect of our daily life. Hi, I'm Katie Linendahl, and we're here at VMworld to bring you a first look at Connect, an innovative new program delivering valuable content for IT professionals. Welcome, Peter Burris, industry analyst at Wikibon theCUBE, spent the last 2 years also at SiliconANGLE, but maybe more importantly, also spent the last 25 years helping businesses succeed and just grow their technology and grow in this digital transformation. And you and I were chatting off camera. Now more than ever, this opportunity for businesses to really connect with their customers, and again, using that digital transformation, the opportunity is huge.
And getting bigger. The rate at which a business transforms can be tied to how it's using data as an asset. Is it reinstitutionalizing work? Is it engaging its customers differently? Is it organizing its assets? Every business organizes around what it regards as its assets. What's the difference between Amazon and Walmart? They have physical assets, perhaps not as many, but they got very large depots, physical products all over the place, they got inventory, but they use data as a way of connecting and engaging with their customers. And Walmart today is trying to make sure it doesn't follow the route of Sears.
And Sears Walmart's such a strong example, but I feel like we could supply hundreds of those.
Oh, absolutely. And you could go, look at Blockbuster and Netflix. What's the difference? Blockbuster used its physical locations and its inventory of physical devices as its assets. Netflix said, no, the assets are data and digital and how we engage customers digitally. So there is a real difference here, and that once you accept that concept of data as an asset and then understand that the process of digital transformation is the process of using data differently, a whole bunch of interesting competitive opportunities pop out of that relationship.
And what do you see are the common hurdles for, especially as a big business or even a small, to make that leap?
Data is different from, everybody talks about data as a new oil. And okay, I get it, but it really isn't. And the reason why it isn't the new oil is because oil still follows the economics of scarcity. I can apply oil to create gasoline for my car or home heating oil or turn it into plastics. But it has a use that is applied to a outcome. Data is very differently. Data can be copied, it can be shared, it can be moved relatively efficiently. So you don't have the same notion of scarcity in data. In many respects, the challenges of using data as an asset is to privatize it, is to find ways to make it scarce, to make sure that the bad guys can't get it or your competitors can't get it, and that you're not misappropriating someone else's value, like what GDPR and the EU is doing with data today. By moving things to the cloud, suddenly this world of any device, anywhere, anytime, following the fundamental rules of physics and latency and intellectual property controls and concerns and local regulatory regimes about how you can use data differently, that cloud provides you an opportunity to just opens up the world of possibility of how you can apply data to improve your business and your customer experience.
And for the everyday consumer, not just even the customer, I think, and maybe the customer included as well, I almost think we're taking this cloud infrastructure for granted, whether it's going into the hospital and your records are updated in real time by a physician, or using Dropbox, or even ordering your favorite chicken sandwich. All of that is based off of a cloud infrastructure. And I feel like, would you agree that we're taking, again, it for granted?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I think we are, and I think and that's a good thing, right?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day,
it's happening behind the scenes.
Well, it's happening behind the scenes. The more people can do these things, if they are reliable, if they become part of the fabric of your life, if they're embedded in how you do things, it's nice to not have to think about how it's actually being done. You just get the outcome. And then again, that's one of the beauties of doing cloud right. Because of this ability to copy it and share it and move it around, more data is going to be increasingly distributed. And so the challenge is to work with companies that know that it's not about moving data to the cloud, it's about moving the cloud to the data. That's what businesses want to work with companies that can help them move the rich set of cloud services, always available, always on, highly secure, up and down, great operations, down to their data, so that they can focus on the outcomes that they want and the role the data is going to play in those outcomes, and not the underlying mechanics of how they move their data around or get it.
Let's come full circle. Final question. In terms of, you have so much experience. Again, we noted 25 years in this digital transformation and in consultation to different businesses on the technology side and the IT side. What is your best suggestion in going in that next route and realizing you want to be the aggregator of data and really moving, again, I guess in colloquial terms, in the right direction?
Here's what I typically tell executives. Number one, personalize the experience for yourself. And by that I mean, and using the Dropbox example is a good idea. It's a good example of that. How do you personally use data? How has that changed over the last 5, 10, 20 years? Because the minute that the executives realize, oh, I look at things on my phone, I look at things on my laptop, I still have people bring in reports to me, you start to see that they are in fact using the same data in multiple different ways. So that data is an asset that can be applied to a lot of different applications and uses. So executives need to start to make that association between data, its value, its location, and how it's handled. Then once you recognize that the distribution of data is essential to thinking about the architecture and the organization and the workings of your business, now you step back and say, which suppliers, which set of companies are going to allow me to locate my data where it needs to be, proximate to the work that needs to be performed in a way that reduces the risk that I face for the data being misused, maximizes the opportunity for me to generate value today and in the future. And now we're in an interesting conversation about how your digital infrastructure, your digital architecture, your digital organization can be set up to support business today and business going forward. And that's what the transformation is all about.
Peter, good stuff. Thank you so much, and stay tuned. All right, welcoming into the hot seat in the Cloud Summit of conversations that we're having today. First off, Greg Kaffenberger, Cloud Solutions Strategist at VMware. Also, Scott Brindamore, Director, U.S. Pre-Sales Architect Team at CenturyLink. And last but certainly not least, Andy Reedy, welcome from Partner Solutions Architecture at Amazon Web Services. So we're going to have a focused conversation about the cloud and how you guys work so firsthand with clients and customers that are really just growing and transforming them in terms of innovation. If each of you can share an example that, hey, these are technology solutions that are really working for a specific client or for a business that has really helped them grow. And maybe Greg, to start with you.
A lot of customers really use or are looking at technology as a way to innovate or accelerate their business instead of just keeping the lights on, right? So innovations in IoT where manufacturers are using the data that they're using to make their products, they're taking that data to improve products, improve customer experience. Things like that are really manifesting into tangible results for customers.
And Scott, you've seen a bevy of interesting clients and really cool
Sure.
case studies on the spectrum, from the leaders of, without saying any names, makers of chicken sandwiches that we all visit all too often on our app, to connected vehicles. So you have quite an experience in this case.
Yeah, and so the U.S. car manufacturer that we've been working with and is a customer of ours is really looking the autonomous vehicle and the amount of data and connectedness with the user, and also things like maintenance and driving habits, insurance. All that data that's being collected is forcing them to relook at their infrastructure and how they deliver those services to clients. They don't necessarily have to retransform all those applications. They'd like to retransform the platform so they can automate and do things quicker, faster, cheaper, like everybody's doing.
We're going to come back to that in a second. Andy, I want to hear from you.
Yeah, we're really seeing kind of the analytics and machine learning being an area where a lot of folks are interested in diving in and expanding some of the data that they have. So a lot of organizations have a ton of data. They want to be able to actually mine that data, leverage that information to make smarter decisions for their business. Also seeing a lot on the connected devices front, so you know, kind of the IoT bits and things like that, where you're seeing a lot of devices now that traditionally did not have access to the internet. or did not provide any data back, all of a sudden there's a ton of data that's coming back from those devices, and actually being able to do something intelligent with that data to make a business decisions and get learning from that is really critical.
It's an interesting conversation on the IoT side, Greg, to you, because we are seeing this bevy of devices that now are pumping out data and so much information to be gained there and to better serve the customer.
Yeah, the interesting bits about that is this data really sneaks up on a customer, right? They don't, when you put in a HVAC system that controls a building in New York, right? They don't realize that it produces a volume of data that you can then use to refine the algorithms to cool and heat the building. And when people come in, just as an example, to really help with energy efficiency. Before, all that data would either be collected and logged and lost, right? You can use machine learning and different types of technology to really make an impact in not only the profitability of the building, but maybe even in the environment. Something as easy as a HVAC log.
Well, environment and cost savings to the individual or to the client,
Right.
I think, is critical when you kind of triangulate all the differences that they would benefit from analyzing this
Right.
data. It's like a no-brainer. I've seen so many personal client examples on the consultation side on my end, and if things are going well though, and sales are still good, and they're still, that to me is the biggest challenge, is saying you got to see future forward.
Right.
I don't know if you guys, both Greg or Scott, you experience that.
Yeah, every day that we talk to clients that they're stuck in the way they're doing things and don't want to change, or because the culture doesn't allow them to take risks, right? The fear of failure. You're never going to learn in what I always say, not only being Ubered, but your competition taking a leap up and doing something that you're not doing, whether it be connecting to your audience better, to be using the data to make better decisions. We work with a lot of clients on what we call data to decisions, to understand the data they have, the decisions they want to make, and how to not only structure the data, but analyze the data, where to store it, and how to create the process by which the data is collected. The data is actually reformatted, the right amount of data is stored and formatted to get you those decisions quickly, right? And a lot of it's on AWS and storing the right data depending upon the volume and the velocity of the data and where it is and where it needs to be analyzed, and the right platform for VMware to store it and make sure it's interacting with their applications and their workflow as well. So a lot of that is the know-how, but it's also the guiding hand to get them to where they want to go, get some successes. IT is always bringing up these ideas and how they're going to help the company, but actually proving it and doing that first proof points that gets the ball rolling and make you understand that it may not be perfect, but you have to start somewhere and you have to start doing it. And then as you go, you heard in keynotes here at VMworld about automating everything. You have to automate that process, make it simple, make it transactional, and make it work at the speed that the data needs to be analyzed.
You
right?
have to execute. Everyone has great ideas.
Right.
Everyone you meet, every company, every person you see has a great idea. But if you don't execute it, it stops at that stage.
Right.
Scott, in your presentation at VMworld, you shared a powerful statistic that by 2019, hybrid cloud will be the common strategy for 70% of enterprises.
Yes.
But with that too comes setbacks, and you noted specifically complexity of integration, lack of expertise, lack of planning of strategy, just to name a few. And I think those are really legitimate points.
Yeah, and I think it's a journey to the cloud and understanding how to change your modality, how you operate, what's the right platform, what's the right environment when you move workloads to the cloud. How do you understand the complexities of integration of applications across the network, across distances, things like compliance and data sovereignty. All of those complexities make it really difficult, and it just creates more and more work and more things for the IT department to do.
The big differentiator with CenturyLink is this holistic approach,
Right.
making it way more easier to manage.
Yeah, and we talk about best execution venue, which is we'll help you with the planning to decide what is the right platform. We're agnostic, right? We have lots of choices of where their workload should work and operate. We'll give you our opinions about the best place to put it. We'll help you move it. We'll help you manage it if you want to. But ultimately, you decide what you want to do. If you want to move it and manage it, great. We'll give you the consulting and the expertise. But if that changes down the road, which it often does, that different projects and priorities come into place and they need help doing things. We're there as a safe pair of hands to guide you and help you where you need help. And we're not trying to do everything on our own. We're trying to work with the clients and figure out where's the best place to execute the fastest, right? To get them to their goals as quickly as possible.
And I want you to weigh in on that, because I think there's a lot that was said there that probably hits home for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I talk to a lot of customers, the thing that they're talking about with cloud is removing that undifferentiated heavy lifting, right? There's things that they have to do throughout their everyday business that this really isn't their core competency, right? No, this isn't the thing that they do as a business. So running servers, running virtualization environments, running storage arrays, that's things they do because they have to or traditionally had to, when it's really not a core competency for their business. And when they can engage something or use a cloud provider like AWS and be able to come in and actually offload a lot of that undifferentiated heavy lifting, they can focus on actually running their applications and doing the things that impact their customers and not having to worry about some of the minutia that has to take place under the cover. So being able to leverage things like VMware Cloud and AWS, for example, where AWS is going to take care of the physical layer, worry about all the physical infrastructure, VMware is going to manage that virtualization layer for them, and then using somebody like CenturyLink who can actually come in and manage even further up the stack at the workload level or at the application level, really frees the customer up to focus on things that are more important to their business and not having to worry about all of the underlying things that are taking place there.
It makes it, Greg, I think, a really unique and different experience to have that partnership.
Yeah, it's really a game changer. Hybrid cloud is absolutely a reality, and it's no more certain that it's a reality, or it's absolutely certain that it's a reality when you see the partnership between VMware and AWS in the VMware Cloud on AWS solution. The partnership with CenturyLink is all about getting customers onto the platform and utilizing the platform in a way that fuels their business growth. So now with the partnership between the three companies, we can not only give you a hybrid cloud that gives you the best of both worlds, where you can move the workloads that make sense to AWS, keep the workloads that make sense on VMware for the long term, and use a partner to help you choose what are those workloads, and then get them there.
Right.
I mean, they don't just magically move up there as much as we would all hope that they would. It takes investigation, it takes due diligence. You have to learn the business.
It's really not, making the customer not have to make that binary decision, right? Like I hear a lot now, it's like with VMware Cloud, one of the things they love is I can move my applications to the cloud. I can get out of the business of having to operate data centers if I choose to, or I can actually move them back on-prem if I would like to have those workloads on-prem. Once they're in a cloud environment, they then have the ability to actually extend and expand those applications to take advantage of native AWS services. So that's a case where, for example, like on the machine learning or analytics side, I may have this application, I don't want to refactor it, but if I move it out into the cloud environment, now I can extend that application, take advantage of some of these additional AWS services, and actually get benefit without having to spend a period of time refactoring that application.
Greg, Scott, Andy, thank you for chatting. See you soon.
Industry has been through quite a change, especially Visteon. Visteon was a spinoff from Ford, and it had 7 different businesses when we first spun off. We are now down to one business, which is Cockpit Electronics.
We were looking for a service provider to help us move from our legacy data center to a private cloud. The use of technology, in particular virtualization, in our private cloud, CenturyLink gave us the capability to be able to actually provision servers and storage from a portal that allows us to actually respond to the business needs in a quicker and a responsive manner. Previously, it would take us 6 to 10 weeks to deliver on hardware and storage, right? And today we can do that inside of 4 or 5 days. Since the CenturyLink partnership, we've been able to actually provide a more stable environment to the business by way of our infrastructure. The number of outages, right, the amount of support and management that we require has been reduced right during our relationship with CenturyLink. To get into the environment, it took us probably about 6 months to get our first server up and running, and then to get to an operational mode, it was probably about 12 months. Today we have some large engineering initiatives underway, and we now have the capability to expand in a short period of time to satisfy those business requirements.
As we move towards autonomous driving and we have this digital landscape, software is going to become the most important aspect of what we offer our OEM customers. And therefore, our platform technology that we're using gives you that digital landscape, but also gives you the software aspects to be able to develop the products that you need for your customers for autonomous driving.
In this next conversation, we're going to focus on the partnership between AWS, VMware, and also CenturyLink. And joining me, Rima Olinger from AWS, also Dave Shikokchis from CenturyLink, of course, and last but certainly not least, Ajay Patel from VMware. Guys, thank you for chatting. So let's talk about this unique partnership because it really provides a holistic perspective. And Dave, maybe to start with you about the combination of what makes it so successful in your words.
VMware has been the company we've been partnered with for the longest. CenturyLink and VMware have been working together for going 15 years and been coming to VMworld and working on really this vision of the software-defined data center. And VMware is certainly one of the early initiators there of that vision of driving software-defined capabilities into the data center. So we've been a service provider in their ecosystem, but the relationship with AWS has really been coming on very strong lately with our work we've been doing of building our network into the different AWS centers and getting direct connectivity there. And now we're a managed service provider for the AWS platform, just recently been added to that list of certified MSP providers. Not an easy certification to get, a very rigorous process that AWS has there. So really what CenturyLink's able to do is drive connections to these different platforms and really design hybrid cloud solutions that take the best of both platforms, operationalize them for our customers, and get them connected to the networks that matter.
We have a cloud verified designation that CenturyLink has achieved. And what this really gives them is a unique ability to give the customer that trust that, hey, you're running a compatible environment. Right. And that choice that David talked about, right? It's really that flexibility of being able to deploy where it makes sense. And we have a single partner who can offer a complete managed service is very compelling.
So I love using personal examples, and Dave, I know you have one in your arsenal, sure. A good client example of where this partnership indeed is, the spotlight shows off.
We've actually had a recurring pattern of success with some of the different automakers around running and managing a software-defined data center for them, but then also getting them tied in across networking solution out to their stores and to their geographic locations, as well as some of their manufacturing facilities, and then also taking that network, now with that network having the ability to directly connect into AWS, it really gives them a future-proof solution to where they know that they have what they have today, they're optimizing it.
Well, we've been talking about the edge to the data center to the cloud. It feels like this transportation industry and these kind of distributed deployments really speaks to the strength of the partnership.
Yeah, and where CenturyLink is certainly working with companies is where they have broad geographic distribution. I mean, that's where a network really matters, right? That's where a network can really help you make those connections out to all the different retail locations. And retail is another big business for CenturyLink in terms of getting their corporate data center tied into all the different ways that they're trying to innovate in their customer experience or their fan experience or their edge interaction experience. All the innovation that's going on there, it needs a reliable network to get on out there, and that's really where our managed solutions are. That's where we consider it our domain.
I don't want to. Go ahead.
Just to add to that, as it relates to VMware Cloud on AWS, it's extremely important for workload mobility that you have a very strong foundation, and that's what CenturyLink brings to the table. They bring an elastic, resilient network that is able to accommodate that workload mobility. So that is a big value add to this partnership.
And Rima, also to speak to the scalability, because big businesses, large and small, can both utilize with success.
Absolutely. You have the ability to expand and scale back your workloads as needed. And this is what's wonderful. It's bi-directional portability that is scalable up or down.
And in terms of the size, 'cause even the smaller businesses can be taking advantage of this three-way partnership, correct?
Serving the smaller to medium-sized enterprise community, one of the areas that we actually see works really well for us is to engage with them on a DR or a resiliency type practice, and that's something we actually see play out a good bit across our customer base. CenturyLink has a fairly large sales force that's interacting with a lot of those small to medium-sized businesses, and one of the areas, if they've invested in IT, they've invested enough, but they haven't really thought through, they haven't had the budget or the size or the scale to think through what a true DR plan is, and as they're starting to get more investment, as they're starting to grow and mature, they're getting asked those questions. That's an area where, taking a VMware private cloud that they have and then designing, a replication environment, either another target, something else that's VMware compatible, and then managing that DR practice for them. We've been able to bundle that together into a pretty repeatable solution as a managed service.
Yeah. Ajay, in terms of the businesses that you are working with on the client side, is there a common setback, though, than the hesitation of moving forward?
Yeah, so we often talk about cloud. The two biggest or three biggest obstacles typically were perception of security, concerns around security. Often talking about, hey, I need to refactor my applications to move to a cloud. And third, that was not understood till you get into is getting the network connectivity in place.
Sure.
So the practical reality with the solution is you have a truly compatible VMware environment, which is built around VMware and AWS, which is the VMware cloud on AWS. You now have a robust, scalable infrastructure, both at the compute and network layer. And more importantly, it's a hardened solution, it's a dedicated solution that is protected for the customer's need.
We've noticed when we started this service, one of the barriers to adoption is if you're asking a customer to move from a private to a public cloud, they're saying, do I have to acquire new skills for my employees? Do I have to change my operations and processes? And the attractive value prop for this solution is that you don't have to do any of that. You could run, manage, and secure your applications in the cloud without having to re-platform applications, change your processes, retrain your people, or even have to buy any
huge.
hardware. That's
Sounds
huge.
too difficult to true till you try it out.
Yeah, it is, exactly.
Ajay, it's a bit of a segue, but in terms of how you guys function independently versus together, is there differences there?
Yeah, so our biggest promise to our end customers has been about choice, right? And for us, the VMware Cloud Provider Program is really about giving those customers the flexibility of local partners, regional partners, and this kind of a global partners along with AWS. So it's really centered around flexibility of deployment of and getting VMware value, whether they want it on-prem, they want it, as you said, in a private or a hosted manner, or leveraging VMware Cloud on AWS. Whether they want to do direct, consume it directly as a self-service, or through a managed services partner. So for us, it's about being that digital platform or infrastructure that allows our customers to get the benefit of their IT investment, regardless of the deployment choice they're making.
To build on what IJ said, I know that AWS, we're very customer obsessed, so he's absolutely right. We always focus on what is in the best interest of the customer, how do they want to consume that service, and then we point them to the resources that are available, like our managed service providers who have the skill sets that help them do the implementation. That's where CenturyLink comes in.
Well done. Anything you guys want to add?
No, I think we're excited about the partnership, and I think it's really what part of the big announcement we made this year is around the same notion of a VMware Cloud Provider Hub that allows us to take all the capabilities and innovation of VMware Cloud Service in the ecosystem that's available to partners like CenturyLink to deliver to the end customer. So we're really bringing the power of a public cloud beyond just infrastructure to the fingertips of a managed service provider to deliver to the end customer.
I think one of the things that is sort of maybe the meta point about the partnership is helping customers change the way they innovate by being models for that innovation, right? And taking things and driving it online and making them run as operationalized steady state services is really what most enterprise IT organizations need to start doing as they think about all of the different business services they provide to their constituency.
I mean, we're transforming our business, and we're helping our customers transform their business, right? Which is really the benefit they're realizing from our experience doing that.
Rima, anything to add?
Just the pace of innovation. I know that's a big focus for AWS is we continue to innovate, and this great partnership that we're bringing to the table is just an example of that.
Great. Rima, Dave, Ajay, I'm Katie Linendahl. Stay tuned. Stay tuned, because later we're going to tell you how you can connect and put these great minds to work for your business. Because in the end, it all comes back to connections. When you're trying to drive innovation and address the challenges your business faces every day, these three partners have showcased key reasons why a holistic approach makes sense. Later in the program, we'll talk about how to get connected with experts like the ones we've met. Welcoming into conversation Dave Shikochis, who is VP of Product Management for CenturyLink. And when we speak to CenturyLink, really a holistic provider, and would love for you to dive in and just explain some of the umbrella services that are offered.
So CenturyLink is one of the largest communications companies in the world, and so there's services that we provide to the business community that sort of fall into four main categories. The first is our hybrid networking business, which is really where we're connecting, get together organizations across the public and private sector. The second area, and it's the area that I work in, is what we call our hybrid cloud and IT solutions division. And that's really where we're helping customers in the data center, and we're helping them with their applications and their innovation initiatives and their data analysis initiatives to design, build, and run those infrastructures for them, really taking our skills in the IT solutions arena and allow customers to buy into that on an as-needed basis. The third area we have is a pretty large and significant cybersecurity capability, and that's really formed from delivering services and innovating based on all the data we collect from the core of our network. Right? We're able to see threat vectors and attack patterns emerging across the global backbone with the cybersecurity capabilities that a lot of other companies can't see, right? Because they're just not managing and they don't have the visibility into that amount of traffic. And then the fourth key area that we support customers on is really around real-time communications and collaboration. So the ways that organizations are talking to each other, collaborating with each other, really the changing face of the way that business is collaborating. We have a whole variety of real-time communication solutions for them to be able to get supported. And all four of those categories we can support in either just sort of a standard service delivery model, in an advanced services delivery model where we're doing more for the customer, or in a highly customized, more consultative model.
I was watching a video from last year that you were participating in, and you said, we've been running hosted private clouds since there were hosted service clouds.
Right.
And nothing new for CenturyLink, but when you keep having these advancements in architecture, it allows you to expand those offerings, as you're kind of alluding to.
Right. I've been on conference calls in the very early days of VMware with their service provider team, trying to explain to them, no, guys, we want to run this for another customer. Explaining to them what a service provider is going to be. They were still at such a young part of their evolution that that we've sort of helped in many cases. We've helped influence the roadmaps of a lot of the different technology providers that we work with that are now turning into managed services, and then those technology vendors and technology companies are themselves evolving their service offerings like you see today.
So I'd be remiss to not ask about a personal case scenario, and there's a number of different directions that you guys are making so much impact. And if you can provide maybe one case study that you think really stands out, be awesome.
So we're here at VMworld, and we gave a presentation earlier on in the week that was called When Milliseconds Matter. And we're talking about is really the changing face of applications and devices and clouds, and how orchestrating across those three domains with the ability to not only control applications but control the networks that they're connected to, and then consult on best execution venue strategies is really important, and that's core to a lot of what CenturyLink does for the business community. One of the examples that we really got into is really the changing face of what we're seeing going on in the built environment, and how what CenturyLink used to look at a built environment from a question and from a standpoint of, is it on net? Right, that was about as deep as we got into it. What we're really getting into a lot more now with the built environment is, how is it wired, right? How is it generating data? How is it controlled? And how can we help get that traffic across the network to the place where it needs to be so that analysis can be performed? And then how can we help organizations map and deploy applications that take advantage of that data and insights? Pat Gelsinger said during the kickoff of VMworld, I liked his line, he said, we're moving from data centers to centers of data. And that's really what CenturyLink is starting to look at the built environment around, which is all the facilities that we're bringing on net. How do we get them connected? But then how do we figure out what sources of data are coming from that facility, or that stadium, or that that office building, and making sure that gets brought to and centralized where it needs to be centralized, but then distributed to where it needs to be distributed, and then writing and developing applications across all that is really where we see the future of certainly our industry and what CenturyLink is investing in, and where we see that going.
Good stuff, Dave.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining. I'm Katie Linendahl. Stay tuned. been speaking all day about how changes in your business need more connectivity, about how technology is driving innovation. There's more demand on the cloud than ever, but it's also becoming more flexible. Well, two guys that haven't had a chance to join the fun here in Vegas, Paul Seville and Chris McReynolds of CenturyLink, are now going to share their perspective on real-world business situations where milliseconds matter. Chris and Paul, take it away.
Hey, Katie. Thanks for tossing it over to us. Chris and I are here busy in Denver, working the mines while you guys are out there having fun in Las Vegas at your show. But that's okay, because we were really excited about what we're about to roll out here with the new iteration of Cloud Connect.
You know, Paul, you were the genesis of Cloud Connect way back when we started connecting privately to some of the cloud providers. What were some of the customer drivers that you saw that necessitated that kind of connectivity?
Yeah, sure. You know, it's really interesting because the public cloud was originally meant to be accessed by the public internet. And that was the whole idea behind it, was that all of the connections were just going to come in from the public internet. But we started seeing a lot of customers start asking us to provide connections into AWS and to other cloud service providers. And as we started talking to our customers about why they were doing this, we realized that it's a combination of performance and security that was really driving them in this direction. You know, when you're trying to push a lot of data through the public internet, because of the many routing options that can sometimes go through, that latency performance through the public internet isn't consistent and entirely reliable. And so that causes, in many times, a situation where the TCP/IP will choke back on the amount of data that you can push through the internet to get to that public cloud resource that you're trying to reach. So whenever you have private connections into the cloud, then that eliminates that altogether. You can really basically transmit the line rate from your enterprise location, from your data center, right into the public cloud, and it's very reliable, and it's very consistent because it stays on that same path. So that was the original driver for why we started Cloud Connect. But we're about to launch some really exciting new capabilities with it, and we're calling them dynamic connections. So Chris, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that product and this new version that we're rolling out.
Yeah, so what we saw early on, like you said, a lot of people were maybe pushing storage into the cloud, some pretty simple use cases. But over time, as new capabilities were developed in the different cloud providers, you saw customers trying to take, these big legacy monolithic applications and figure out how to break them apart and start to put pieces into the cloud. So as that starts to happen and you have a component of application that, used to sit in a data center, portion goes into the cloud, and now that private network connectivity you mentioned is really important. But they're doing that to different clouds. They're doing it in a very fast fashion. So we realized that we needed to basically enhance our SDN capabilities on the network so that the network performed more like cloud from a real-time consumption model.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So, what excites you most about this? I know we've been at this for a while, and this is definitely a new exciting capability to me.
Yeah, the thing I'm excited about this most about is that this capability to turn up and down bandwidth on demand into the various cloud service providers is something that was part of our original vision since the very beginning, something we've been wanting to get rolled out. And so it's great for us to finally reach that point where we're able to offer this. But it's not just that we're providing a new capability, it's really the scale at which we're providing it that I'm most excited about. When we're rolling this out, it's not just going to be limited to just a few locations and then we're going to grow it. Out the gate, it's immediately available in over 750 public data centers across the globe. It's going to be available in tens of thousands of our existing enterprise customer locations. And adding locations to the network, since it's really built off of our standard Ethernet global platform, is very simple for us to do. So we can scale it and grow it to new enterprise locations very quickly and easily. And once it's enabled at an enterprise location, then they can literally reach any global cloud service provider that we have supported on the network across the globe. So if you're in Houston, Texas, and you use our network, you could actually reach an Amazon Web Services resource that's in Hong Kong. If you wanted to. Now, you may not want to do that, but you have that kind of a flexibility. And in addition, the flexibility is between data centers and between cloud service providers as well. And so it's not just limited from type location A to cloud service provider B. It is a mix and match full switching characteristics and capabilities between data centers, between enterprise locations, and between all the cloud service providers that we support.
And that actually solves one of the use cases of our big multinationals that I see pretty often, which is a lot of people do development of new applications in the cloud. That's no surprise to anyone. But maybe the development team is in Latin America, maybe the development team's in North America, and they're doing all their test work and their dev work in that environment. But when they deploy it, they're a multinational company, and they're deploying it to clouds, like you said, in APAC. They're deploying it to clouds in North America, Europe. And then they have their on-prem data center stuff that is still there from their legacy applications. That global value proposition is a key one to me, because it allows those global companies to do their development quickly in the cloud, but then when they deploy it into production, they can quickly add those network connections that they need to make it work with their legacy environments. Could you talk through how latency matters for customers, how visibility into packet loss and jitter and things like that impact their ability to manage their applications?
Yeah, I'd love to do that, because it's a really important topic. Milliseconds do matter in the future, and as time goes on, it's going to matter even more. What we're seeing in terms of the types of applications that are being supported by the cloud environment, when you're talking about augmented reality or retail robotics, all of these types of applications that are emerging that people want to take advantage of, they can be very difficult to run out of the cloud if there is not very tight latency tolerances and very tight performances. And so having these private networking connections, particularly on a dynamic basis, that are very reliable, that are very consistent in their performance, is going to be key to making this whole new world work together.
One of the key themes out of VMworld this year was any app, any cloud, any device. How do you stitch all that together in a way that works?
Well, Chris, that's really, in the end, what we're shooting for with this capability. We want to really make the network consumable like you can consume cloud, and make it on demand. And it boils down to our job just being, make the network easy, make it consumable so that you only pay for what you use, make it globally available, and make it high performing. And if we deliver on that value proposition, then we're going to be achieving that goal that's coming out of VMworld. So Katie, with that, I think Chris and I are going to toss it back to you guys in Vegas and get back to work here. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris and Paul. Well, as you can tell, oftentimes people don't think about the network and how it's making all these things possible. But behind the scenes, it's a real connection that allows so much to happen. We talked at the beginning about the proliferation of data in our devices and how experts have given us some real-world examples of how they're seeing and solving these challenges for companies. So are you wondering where we go from here? Well, AWS, CenturyLink, and VMware will continue to provide more valuable insight. The experts we met today and their colleagues around the world are looking forward to connecting with you directly at a Connect Accelerator. Thanks for joining us for the first episode of Connect. This is just the beginning of our conversation on technology and connections. Click on the link to schedule your Connect Accelerator.